another construction video. Today's one is for Tonic Showcase number 38, which is called the Terrific Triple Towers, because you can actually use this die set to create a windmill, a lighthouse and a helter-skelter. Although when I was putting the helter-skelter together, it made me think of a Rapunzel tower as well, so I'm sure you could do that with it too, possibly even turn it into a rocket. And I'm sure there are plenty of other different buildings or icons and things that you could turn it into as well. If you have different papers or cardstocks, or you know, just think outside the box a little bit, maybe add some different dies onto it as well. I'm sure you can turn it into a lot more things than just the triple towers that it can create. But I thought I'd do a construction because there are 3 different versions of the towers. I've made a helter-skelter just by myself. I made the windmill and I've done a photographic step-by-step which will be on Tonic's blog. And then I'm also doing the lighthouse, so I thought I would film you the construction video with the lighthouse because I'm making it anyway, so I might as well show you how to construct it. And I also thought, in the die set you have these panels here. I will go through this in full detail in my up close video, which should have been up yesterday if you want to have a look at that. But you have these panels here that give you kind of like these cutout sections, which I think is what is supposed to kind of emulate the stripy patterns on a lighthouse. However, whenever I do a lighthouse, I like to have continuous stripes going all the way around the lighthouse. I just think it visually looks kind of better. That's kind of what I imagine a lighthouse to look like. So I thought I'd show you different ways of, you know, different Nuvo products that you could use to create the stripes on your lighthouse. So obviously, one of the most basic things you could do is just take strips of red cardstock, and maybe once you've built it, you could just wrap the strips of red card round, or red ribbon or something as well. But if you want to use some more of your inky or painty kind of product, I did this little swatch card, and it actually inspired me to not just use my alcohol pens like I was going to. I've actually used alcohol pens, embossing powder and Nuvo shimmer powders as well. So I've got a few little samples here of kind of different ideas that you could use, or like I've done, you can mix them together as well. So the top one is just a single red alcohol pen. The next one is the lighter red with the darker red along the bottom and then blended back into the lighter one. The next one is the Nuvo shimmer powders. So this was Catherine Wheel and Maroon Spark, and I mixed them both together to do this background stripe, and then whilst that was still wet, I sprinkled in some Catherine Wheel and I sprinkled in some Maroon Spark on that end. On my actual lighthouse, I went for the Catherine Wheel because I wanted to put some kind of goldy sort of colours in the light portion of the lighthouse. So I thought that Catherine Wheel with the tiny little flecks of gold in there would go really nicely, although the Maroon Spark would tie in the kind of darker black tones of the other elements in the lighthouse that I've used as well. But I just thought it's a different way of creating your stripes really. Basically all I did was take a wide water brush, or you can use a paintbrush and water, and then just paint your stripe. And I don't think it matters if they're wonky. I do have a tip for how to get your stripes to match on the final side, but I don't think it matters if they're a little bit wonky. I quite like the wonky look. However, there is a technique in here that gives you really straight lines as well if you'd rather do that. And you could definitely use a ruler and mark little notches so you know exactly where to line things up and everything. The next one is similar kind of concept, but this is just a Nuvo Aquaflow if you still have any of those in your stash. The red apple one is a beautiful dark red colour, or the other one I think is called Matador Red. That would give you like a darker tone, and you could do this kind of two-tone sort of striped colour if you wanted to do that as well. But again, I don't think it matters if it's a little bit of a wonky kind of stripe. I've actually kind of gone for a little bit more grungy kind of style because I've left little messy portions in it as well, and I do like the look of that, so that's why I've gone with it. But if you would prefer it to be a much neater kind of look, here I have actually used the new dye tape. So you can get now, Craft Perfect do this little dispenser, and they also do packets of 2 rolls of this craft dye tape. Now for the way I die cut, it's not really sticky enough for me for die cutting, but it is perfect for when you want to do ink blended stripes, because you can push this down as hard as you want and it doesn't rip your cardstock when you pull it off. So I actually just took a length of this and ripped it down the middle, so I wasn't wasting too much of it. And then I put one, you know, flat edge, the outer edge of the tape across there, and then put the other one below, so the two ripped edges were on the outside, and I was only using one length of tape, and then I just ink blended in the centre with some Candied Apple Distress ink, and look at the perfect result you get of a stripe. So you definitely could be much more accurate with adding your stripes to your lighthouse. Go down the side of each of them, use a ruler, mark little notches, put the tape across and everything. But you'd probably want to do each panel individually because of how they join together. It's a slight sort of curve going round, but you definitely could do it much more precisely if you want to. I've also just shown a glitter marker there. That's the Fired Brick glitter marker. And then you can also use either your ink pad and be like really careful and not use the whole of it and kind of like use the side of it, or you can just use your Nuvo clear mark pen. This whole big stripe was done with the clear mark pen. I just pumped it to get more of it down into the nib and then just scribbled over to draw that entire thicker line, but you can also do much thinner lines as well. So I kind of wasn't, I did this little swatch sheet to inspire you of different ways to do stripes, but in the end I ended up inspiring myself because I was just going to do the alcohol pens because that's what I would normally do if I want to add stripes to something. But instead I did the alcohol pens, then I put the Nuvo clear mark. I just drew a thinnish line along the bottom of each of the stripes and added the sugared strawberry embossing powder, which is a sparkly red one from Tonic, a relatively new kind of colour, this one. And I just added that to the bottom of each of the stripes. And then I did really love the way this was speckly, but because I had coloured with alcohol pens, when I wet the cardstock, it kind of just completely sucked it all in and it wasn't wet enough to get that sprinkled kind of effect. So instead of doing that, I sprinkled it on and then I just took my wet brush and ran it across it again. So it just kind of gave you that subtle gold sheen from the Catherine Wheel Nuvo shimmer powders. So I really like that kind of effect, and I just wanted to show you some inspiration of like how you can actually create stripes on your projects. And of course as well, you can also bring in stamping too. If you have some of the showcases or anything that's had nautical themed items in, if you were doing like the dye tape to mask off your lines, you could then also stamp into your ink blended pieces as well and add some pattern in there too. Sorry if you can hear barking. Pickle, Pumpkin's sister, is visiting at the moment and it sounds like they're playing out there. So that's, if you hear barking, it's Pumpkin and Pickle barking together. Anyway, yeah, that's another kind of way that you can sort of add some extra detail into this as well. Or you could bring in your Nuvo glitter markers or coloured pencils or alcohol pens or sparkly gel pens, anything that you might have, and draw little doodles in your stripes as well. So tons of ways of adding your stripes, but I thought I'd just go through that at the beginning of this construction video just to kind of tell you exactly how I got this stripy effect on my lighthouse. So I'll move these bits out of the way and then we'll get on with the construction. So for the main body of the lighthouse, there are two different panel sizes. One creates the top portion of the lighthouse and one creates the bottom. And the reason why they've done it like this is so that the box can open in half. So you don't have to, you know, only have the opening right at the very top of it. You can actually pull the box open in half and put your gift more in the lower half. If you were putting like a miniature bottle or maybe a bottle of bubble bath or something in there, you could house it in the bottom and then slide the top over the top of the, you know, the top of the bottle hanging out. So that, but you can stick it together however you want. You don't have to have it opening in the middle. You can stick it in the middle and it just opens at the top, or you can stick the top on and have it just opening at the middle, or you can have all three bits separate if you want to as well, depending what kind of design you're going for. But for this one, what I have done to be able to get my stripes to go all the way across, I have stuck them together already. This is the way the instruction tells you how to put the top piece together, but for the bottom piece it actually tells you to take each individual panel and stick it to each of the sides of the hexagon, which is how I showed how to put my windmill together in the photographic step-by-step on Tonic's blog. So if you want to see that, you can, you know, go and check out that way of putting it together. But I thought if you get carried away and you stick your pieces together, or if you want to do this continuous stripe kind of thing, you might think, hang on, how am I supposed to put this piece together with that hexagon base in the bottom if I've already stuck my panels together? So I thought it'd be nice to show you another way of putting it together as well, still being able to get that hexagon base in, because the box tapers, so you can't slide it in from the top because the top will be smaller than the bottom. So I'll show you how to do that. But anyway, a top tip about getting your stripes right just do your stripes across your piece. It doesn't matter if they're a little bit wonky, I do love that wonky kind of look. And then when you've finished, just pull it round and match it up with the other side and just check that they look all right and that they're lining up quite nicely. And if they're not, just widen a little bit, you know, or make it so it matches a little bit better. Or if they don't match and you don't want to fix it, then that can just be the back seam of the box as well. It doesn't particularly matter, but I do find it is much easier, if you're going for the messy look, it's much easier to stick them all together first and then do your stripes on it. If you wanted it to be really precise, like I was saying earlier with like ink blending and using the dye tape to mask it off, you can definitely, you know, do little pencil marks to make sure you're putting your tape in the right places and do each panel individually, and then that way you can actually put it together as the instructions tell you to as well, by putting all of the single pieces onto the hexagon base. But as I've done it this way, I might as well show you how I'm going to assemble it this way. So first of all, we need some red liner tape, and I did actually with both of my other ones just use glue to assemble them, but because I want to use red liner tape to stick the base on, I might as well just use it for the side piece as well. And we can also put some glue on it too, not just using red liner tape. If you put a little bit of glue on as well, it just ensures that if you stick it in the wrong place, you can pull it off before the adhesive has caught, because that glue is still wet and it'll allow you to pull it apart without sort of like ripping everything. But it also means that when that glue does dry, it gives it a really good strong bond with the tape and the glue holding it together. So what I'm going to do for sticking the base of this on, I'm going to go all the way around the edge with the red liner tape. And then I will just put a few pieces in the centre. We're not going to need those just yet. That's when we stick the second base onto it to kind of encapsulate all of those glue tabs into there. But how we're going to do this is we're going to make this into the little tunnel sort of piece first. Now, because I did add water to mine, they are bowing inwards a little bit, but I kind of quite like the way that's looking. But if you don't like it, if you have used water on yours and you don't like it, just gently go back round and sort of like mould them to sort of go a little bit straighter around the edges. Okay, so now we need to take the red liner tape off that glue tab on that side. We'll put a little bit of glue on there just to help us be able to manoeuvre it, but it is pretty simple to line up this one. And all we're going to do is just bring that round and then line up this cut line to the score line over here. And you're also kind of lining up where the horizontal lines are going across as well. So you're lining up that vertical, but you're also lining up the glue tabs down here as well. You want them to be in line with each other so everything sits nicely when it's all put together. And you can just wipe off any excess glue. You do also on these pieces have this little portion at the top here, which is what kind of helps everything to stay together. They're little flat sections that help all of the interlocking pieces, but we'll come back to these once we've put the base on, because I like to use these little miniature pegs to hold those top pieces together, just so that they stay stuck really nicely. So we've got that portion done so far. Now, usually your base would already have been on if you're following the instructions from the packaging. However, we can't put the base through the top because the base is too big, so we're going to have to put the base through the bottom. So what I'm going to do is remove all of the red liner tape from the outside edges of the hexagon, and this is where all of our glue tabs are going to stick to. So we can just make sure all of the backing is off of all of these. And then what you do is you just start with one side. So start with one side of that hexagon, press it on, make sure it's firmly stuck, and then you can push all of these backwards for now, just so they're all out of the way. Then we can push that base piece inside, and you can kind of see how it wants to line up with all of the other edges. So you can then, I would do like the opposite side first, I think, and you can actually press from the inside to get that to stick really nicely, just using your glide folder. Get that second side to stick, and then the other ones are going to be much easier to just fold round like this. And again, because we haven't taken that liner tape off yet, we can actually flip it over, press from the inside to make sure all of those glue tabs are really firmly stuck. And then we can come back to the bottom, take off those other bits of red liner tape. Then we could either put red liner tape on the back of this one, or we can just use wet glue to stick this on as well. So then again, we'll have that combination of a bit of red liner tape and the wet glue. And you want to make sure you go all the way around the very edges of this, because these parts are where the glue tabs are and they haven't got any adhesive on them already. Let me zoom you in a little bit closer. And then we can just put that on the bottom of there, so it encapsulates those glue tabs and makes the bottom of that box really strong. So if you are going to put something like a miniature bottle of wine in there, or something heavy like a bottle of shampoo, or a bubble bath or something, you know, it's a nice strong base to that box for you. Then the next step is these little glue tabs up here. Now what I like to do is I fold them all backwards, so they're sort of out of the way and I can access them with my glue. And then I tend to do 3 at a time. So I'll just put a little blob of glue on 3 of them. And then I can fold them in and use a little peg to hold them in position. And here you want, again, that cut line on one side to line up with the fold line on the other side, so that it's nice and straight going upwards. You have these little score lines on here as well. You don't actually have to fold those ones though. They are just sort of like more markings of where the top part of the box is meant to rest onto the bottom part of the box. It's more of like a guideline rather than an actual score line for you to fold or anything. So we've got the first 3 done, and then we can go and put the glue on the other 3 and get those sticking as well. And I tend to just keep the pegs on whilst I'm working on the rest of the box as well. And we'll try and do as much of the pieces that need pegging first, so that they can be drying whilst we're finishing off other aspects of it as well. So let's do that one, and then the next one, and we need our peg on that one as well. And then we've got one more just to stick together as well. And you can clip that piece together too. So now all of that bottom part of our lighthouse is put together. If you don't like the messiness of the inside, this is because I used alcohol pens. Oh, there's a bit of red liner in there. This is because I used alcohol pens and then I wetted them and put the shimmer powders on as well. But if you don't like that messy look, you can cut panels to go in there and hide them, or you can put tissue paper and stuff inside the gift box, and then no one's really going to see the actual inside of all of the panels in there as well, whichever kind of option you want to do. Although I don't particularly mind that you can see the workings of how you made it inside the box. So that is the bottom of the box, and actually let's go with the next part of the bottom of the box next. So the bottom of the lighthouse has a base piece that it kind of nestles into, and you actually create it from 2 of this piece, which I do have another idea for as well, so hopefully I've gotten around to doing that and you'll have seen that yesterday in the up close video. But yeah, you need 2 of these, which have got a hexagonal base, and then they have a bunch of scored pieces all the way around the edges. So you just want to fold all of these, everything is folding away from you. You just want to go around, use your glide folder to get really crisp fold lines on them, and you've got 2 little glue tabs on each of them as well. But you just want to go around, make sure they're really nicely folded, and then this piece is really simple to put together, but it's also really like a clever kind of piece that you could use for other projects and on your cards as well, for a different kind of look if you don't mind dimension on your cards. And hopefully that will be the idea that I show you yesterday in the up close video. But we just make sure all of that is nicely pre-folded, so that everything is really easy to assemble. Then I'm just going to take some wet glue again, cover one of these hexagons with wet glue, going as close to the edges as you can, because you want it to be nice and securely stuck all over. And then you're just going to take the other one and flip it round, so you're now filling in those other 3 sides that were missing from the first one. And place that in, press it down really firmly to get it to stick nicely. And then you've got your complete kind of base there. Next step is these tiny little triangle glue tabs that are here. I haven't folded these ones actually, need to fold all those, and this one. So the first glue tab here is this tiny little triangle one. We're going to be sticking all of those triangle ones together to bring up the sides of the base. So again, I'm going to do like 3 at a time, just so that the glue can kind of be setting a little bit on the next 2. you know, whilst we're going around the first one, the glue will be a little bit tackier by the time we get to it. And it's a bit difficult to peg these ones because of the way the rest of the cardstock's here. So you kind of do just have to hold it until it has grabbed. But you've got that first side there, and then the next side. And I'm squeezing really tightly so that any excess glue comes out. And if there's less glue in there, it's going to take less time for it to dry. And then the next side, again squeezing tightly. That one's coming undone now. And just making sure that they're really well stuck. So that's the first 3 of them. And then we can add glue to the next 3. So tiny little triangular glue tabs there. It might actually hold itself together without gluing these, but I think it probably gives a neater finish if you have actually glued them into position before you fold the next pieces in. So hold that into place. Again, pressing really firmly so you squeeze any excess glue out, and you can just wipe that away. And then the last one. Right, so now you have a piece that looks like this, so all of the sides are going upwards. And then this bit's really, really simple. You just start with whichever one you want to, and then here, on this final glue tab that's there, you just put adhesive on that, and then you're literally tucking that round. So this glue tab that we've put glue on is going to stick to the base. There's enough pieces there to fold round, and it sticks to the base, and you know how far to push it in, because it's actually going to hit over here, so it's the same width as the moulded piece here, if that makes sense. It's hard to see on black, but it's the same width here, so when you're pushing it in, the glue tab is just going to hit this outside edge, so you know exactly how far to put it in. So it's really simple to put together this part, and you're just going to go round, and then I'll show you a trick for the final one as well. So actually I've gone round in the wrong order. I'll leave that one till last. We have to go round clockwise because of the way the die is cut. You want this mitered, or this mitered corner to be on the top so it looks pretty. This way round you would get the square piece there. So if you go round in one direction, it works much better for you. So going round in the correct direction, the next one you put the glue on again and tuck that piece under and stick it into position. It doesn't matter if this gets messy because this is where the lighthouse is going to be stuck. You just want to keep all of this outside edge as clean as you can. And then put some more glue on the next one and tuck that one under, and then the next one and tuck it under, and then the second to last, tuck that under. And then the final one, as I was saying before, I almost went round in the wrong order, because you've got this piece here, if you can, so you see there's a mitered corner on that side, but if we fold this one round, there's not going to be a mitered corner on this side. So all you do is just take your scissors on this last one and just snip that at an angle. You could, if you wanted to, sorry, I'm holding that further away than I usually would, but you could, if you wanted to, try and tuck it underneath there, but I feel like it's such a hassle. Just snipping off that tiny little piece is going to do the trick. So you can just snip that off and then tuck that under, and then you're left with a double mitered corner there as well. So you've got your miters all the way around, rather than having one with that triangle piece sticking out on there. So that is our base for our lighthouse, and then we're just going to stick our lighthouse inside that. So put some adhesive on the bottom and then place it inside there, and it gives you a lovely neat finish with your little base on your lighthouse there as well. And you can press from the inside to make sure that's nicely stuck in there too. Okay, so we've got the complete bottom part of our lighthouse done now. So next thing is we'll go on to that top portion. And again, very similar to the bottom of the box, we're going to, well, I've already stuck them all together and done the stripes on them, same way as I did for the bottom section. We're going to add a little bit of the red liner tape to the glue tab. And then I can take off the backing of that. And again, we're just pulling it round to join those two sides up. Looking at those like marker sort of score lines that are in there, and lining that up as best as we can. And then this is very similar to that top portion there, how we've got these small little tabs that help this all come together. So now we need to do that on the top and the bottom. Okay, so that's the next part of the lighthouse ready to go on. But now we're actually going to start from the top of the lighthouse and work our way back down to the bottom of the lid portion, I think. So for that very top of the lighthouse, you want 3 of these pieces, and then you also want your lights on there as well, like the light at the top of the lighthouse. And you can do this in a couple of different ways. You've got this interior detail here which is separate from the outside, so you can cut that detail into these pieces as well, cut it 6 times into all of these pieces, maybe put vellum behind your main panel to stick over the top so that you can actually see through this top piece, and then you could put some kind of LED in there. You could put a false base on this and put one of those battery operated tea lights in there so you've got a flickering light behind it. But what I decided to do is, because I've gone with the shimmer powders on some of the stripes, I took a yellow alcohol pen, the 404 from the Nuvo ones, coloured a piece of cardstock. You could have used coloured card. I just was using alcohol pens, so I thought I might as well use them for this part too. But I misted it with water and then added some Golden Sparkler Nuvo shimmer powder over the top to give it that beautiful gorgeous like metallic-y kind of finish with the gold. But also this one has like darker colours in there, which I thought would go really nicely with the darker tones. It also has little sprinklings of red in there, which then bring in the stripes from the lighthouse as well. And then my cheats way of doing this, you know, sometimes when you've used some kind of Nuvo-y product or any kind of sort of more mixed media or inky kind of product, sometimes when you die cut it, some of it transfers to your die cutting plates and then you kind of forget, and the next time you use a piece of white card it transfers onto that and you get annoyed with yourself. Well, a cheats way of you know, adding a backing panel, and I do this a lot with a lot of different dies, whether I have done something like this with a Nuvo product or not, you can just take your cardstock, take whatever your intricate die is, add your glue to the back of it, stick it over the top, and then just cut around it rather than using the die to give you the exact shape around it. Especially when it is a rectangle, it is so easy to then just take your scissors and cut around the edge of it, and then you haven't got the worry of making your plates dirty in your die cutting machine. It saves you running things through your die cutting machine 6 times to do a backing plate for each of these, and it's just so easy to do when it's a rectangle. So that is one of my cheats ways, that whenever we're doing prep for Jodie to make on the telly and actually making our samples as well, sometimes you really don't want to have to even 6 extra die cuts will take you, you know, so much longer because you've got to do it twice for 2 different projects. So doing this kind of cheats way, it just sort of quickens the process a little bit. So you want 3 of these pieces because it is a hexagonal based lighthouse, and then you want 6 of your little lights, 1 to go on each of the little panels on there. So once you've trimmed around them, you can stick them into position, and then I do actually need to pre-fold this one, I haven't done that yet, and then we can start assembling this sort of top pointy portion of the lighthouse. The Helter Skelter and the windmill both have 2 portions to their top piece that join together to create whichever shape works for the kind of building that you're doing, but this one is all in one piece, which is nice, so it's a little bit less die cutting in that respect as well. So we'll just pre-fold all of these pieces, and again on the bottom of this piece you also have that kind of guide score line, so it's not actually one that you need to score. These ones along the bottom are more of like a little guide. That's how far up the lip of the top of the lighthouse goes behind this as the lid, so it's not actually a score line, it's more of a guide for you. So once we've got all of those pre-scored, we can now go with our wet glue, or you can use your red liner tape, whatever you want to do, and add it to that glue tab, and then stick this into position, butting it right up against the score line where you scored it. I do think it's much easier to have already pre-scored or pre-folded everything before you stick it together as well, because you can really see where that little bulge is. You know, when you score something you get like a little bulge in the cardstock where it's been folded. I think it makes it much easier to construct once you've already done that pre-folding of things. So we can stick that one into position, and then last glue tab we're going to form this into our hexagonal piece and glue the two sides together. Then we've got the roof portion to stick together. So for this, we've actually got all of the glue tabs already there, and they should all go together. Although that one feels like maybe I need to trim a little bit off of it to get it to go. Is it going to go together? Yeah, I think that's going to be alright. Sometimes glue tabs sort of interfere, especially when there's a point on there. So occasionally you might have to trim bits off of glue tabs to get them to go together really neatly. I think this one's going to be okay from the angles that it's going together. So we'll go with one first and stick that together, hold it into position. And you do want to make sure you get the glue right up to the top of that point so that it holds together really nicely and all of them are going to meet really nicely. This one's also got a lovely deboss detail that just does it automatically with the die too, which is nice. You don't have to put a separate piece in to get that deboss detail, it just does it for you. It's kind of reminding me of the top of Big Ben maybe, although Big Ben's square, but you probably could turn it into Big Ben if you wanted to. So we'll tuck this glue tab back behind that triangle, and again hold it into position so we're getting a good bond all the way down that score line. This one is going to be trickier to stick when you're getting to the later tabs, so we're probably going to have to poke it from the inside to get some of these, you know, because you can't get your fingers in once you've started closing the top of that up, so we might have to poke from the inside, because this is the first one of this kind of lid that I've put together, because the other two required different ones. But it's nice that you get 3 different options, because it means if you have got some kind of monument or building or something in mind, you've got like different options that you can add to the top of it, which is nice. And you can even, 2 of them have flat tops, so you could even then stick something extra onto the top of that too, to maybe like a little figurine that you have or something, you could add it to the top, which is nice. So you can really personalise them, or change the theme of them. So we've got those 3 sides done. Then as we get round here, we might have to start pushing from the inside to press these together, squeeze out any excess glue, and I'm just pressing from the inside so that I can get a good bond on that glue tab there. And we can use our glide folder as well if we want to get right up into that point as we get the last couple of panels joined in there as well. Okay, so for the last panel we've actually got 2 glue tabs to join, so when I do one like this, I just pull that other panel out, put the glue on there, put the glue on this glue tab as well, then carefully tuck that glue tab in, can wipe off the excess glue, and then this time I think we are going to go from the inside and press those down nice and securely. And then we come back to the outside and just double check it's all in the right position. And that gives a really neat top to that box as well. So I'm sure you could think of other uses, even just for this small little piece as well. It could be a little gazebo or something, or is it called a pergola or a gazebo? I'm thinking of Gilmore Girls, that little building that's in the middle of the square, that kind of thing. You could turn it into that as well. It could be like a spinning top too. You could do some kind of different portion on the top for it, and it could go up this way. There's lots of different things that you can turn all of these elements of the different pieces into, which is really nice. So that's the main top piece of the lighthouse, but a lighthouse usually has an observation deck going around the edge of it, so you also have the pieces to do that. So for this, it's a hexagon, so you need 3 of these double pieces so that you've got 2 sides already together, which is nice. And we're just going to pre-fold the last one, and everything is folding away from you. Be a little bit careful when you're folding these because of the intricate detail that's cut out in them. You just want to be extra gentle when you're folding it and making sure it's folding in the correct position you want it to fold in, because sometimes if you just go to fold it, you'll start bending the wrong portion. So just be extra careful. If you are struggling with that, you can fold against a ruler. That often helps, or you could fold against your glide folder if you want to. You can also like push against that portion of it too to try and fold it as well. But whichever kind of way works best for you. Then for this piece, I think actually the easiest thing to do is put this piece on first. So this is like the floor of this little observation deck, and these pieces are actually going to stick around the outside of it. But I think maybe it's going to be easier if we already stick this piece on, because this piece is actually going to stick onto the grey portion, and it should fit inside it. And be a nice snug fit, and this actually goes up to that marker line. You know, I said the little score line that's in there, that's actually where that sits. And I was thinking we could actually stick a second one on. I cut 2 out in case I wanted to use it, but actually with this one it doesn't have score lines next to these semicircles, but you do need to fold those pieces because that's what the little glue tab is that's holding it onto the top of this box. But for the second one, I'm going to put the second one on after we've stuck the observation deck on. So for the second one I'm actually just going to go in and snip these off, but they are very easy to fold even without the score line on there to make them into glue tabs. They're very, very easy just to fold down. But I'm going to trim them off so that we've got this extra one to make it look really nice and neat after we've stuck the observation deck around the edge of it. So let's just trim off all of those little semicircles so we've got this piece ready. Then we need to stick this to here. So we're going to slide that down so it's in line with the line that goes all the way around. You can see it there, so it needs to go up a tiny little bit, and then you can pull that back, put a tiny little dot of glue just behind that little semicircle there, and then press that into position to hold it into place. If you really wanted to, you could maybe cut like an extra strip of cardstock and run it around the edge to really hold those glue tabs on if you want to, but it depends, you know. I don't think anybody's going to see that. You'd have to sort of be looking up from down below to see that, I think. So you don't really need to hide it. And if you did do the whole top portion in the same colour, you wouldn't really notice it at all. I've just done it in grey and black, so it's quite noticeable having those little semicircles of black stuck onto there. So final 2 little tabs, just folding them forwards, a little dot of glue behind them, making sure it's in line with that score line, and then pressing them into position. Okay, so we'll make sure that's nicely stuck before we move on. So we've got our little observation deck kind of piece on there, and all of the glue will dry clear, doesn't matter that it's poking out a little bit. And then we want to stick this around the edge of this. So I think the easiest way is probably going to be to stick one on, join the next one on, and then stick those tabs underneath, rather than making it into a hexagon to begin with. So I'm going to put glue on the glue tabs of those, and then I'm just going to push it underneath there and, oops, came off, push it around the edge of that corner on the hexagon, and get the other side to stick on as well. Going to be a little bit fiddly to get this together, but we can push from underneath and then push our glide folder on top to really get the pressure that we need to get the glue tab to stay stuck nicely. So we've got the first couple of sides on there. Then I think the easiest thing is going to be to glue this one onto here, and then put glue on its glue tabs and stick it underneath that hexagonal piece. So we'll do that first, and this actually covers that entire portion, and we're going to cover it anyway, so we might as well just put the glue directly onto there, in which case you could have put red liner tape all the way around that if you wanted to as well. So we can press that one into place, and pull that round and press it into place there. And then we have got the final one to put on. So yeah, let's go this glue tab, get this to stick on nicely first. Then I think I'm going to pull that round and get the other glue tab on. and stick that under there to get that in the right position. And then once that is nicely stuck, I'm going to just peg that just so that it stays stuck together whilst we're doing the next bit. While they're gluing, we've still got these two little flaps here to glue, so we can prise those up and add our adhesive underneath them. And then we can push those into position. Again, like pushing from underneath with your finger and then from the top with your glide folder or bone folder or card creaser, whichever you like to use. And there we have our little observation deck for the top of the lighthouse. But we want to neaten up that bottom piece just a little bit. It does look quite neat actually, the way they've made that, you know, the tabs are the same size as it, and that looks quite cool inside there actually as well. But anyway, I have an extra one of these cut, so we might as well put this over the top of it. So we'll just put a little bit of wet glue right up to those edges, all the way around, and then we can just slide that one over to really neaten it all up. And hold everything into position as well, really. Not just neatening it up, it's sort of holding everything in the correct positions nicely. So just pull that over the top. It's a nice snug fit to get this piece on, which is good. And then again, we can press from underneath, and we can always push from the top here as well to get it to stick really well. Okay, so that is the lid of our lighthouse now as well, and I reckon the other pieces have dried enough now too, so we can go back and take these pegs off. Oh, got a bit stuck on a bit of glue there. Right, so we've got the bottom all stuck together, then we've got like the main top portion of the body of it, and we need to take the pegs off both ends of this one. And we can place that piece over the top of this one, and they join together nicely. And you can definitely stick that in the middle if you want to as well, or you can stick the lid on the top of it. Whichever kind of way you would rather have it opening, you can decide where you want to adhere things together, which is it's nice and versatile, that actually. So I think I want it to open in the middle, so I'm going to stick the top on the box. So the way you do that, whichever place you decide to stick it together, you're just going to take the top off your glue, run a little bead of glue all the way around that inside edge, and then you can just slide that back on the top of the box and push it down to that score line that's in there, and that's where it's supposed to stick into position. And then you can go from the inside and press with your glide folder to get it to be a good secure bond in there as well. I do think wet glue is the easiest way to stick that on too, but now you've kind of got your lighthouse in two halves, so this kind of makes it easier for putting a bottle kind of gift in here, especially if it's one that maybe has a wider bottom and a narrower neck. You can still, you know, this portion is wider to fit that bottom of the bottle in, rather than having to just go through the narrower neck of the box. But then you have your finished little lighthouse box. If you're not that keen with those little semicircles hanging down, I think it makes it look quite nice actually. It looks like you know, welded in bits of railing around there. But if you don't like it, you could wrap ribbon or twine around it, give it a really nautical look, do some knots out of twine or something as well, and have things hanging off of there too if you want to. But you also have all of the elements in here to finish decorating it too. So I cut a few of them out, I've cut out a door so you can decide which side you want the front to be, and you can cut a little door to go in the bottom. I've cut multiple little ship's wheels, which I thought I would just place in random places all over, and I've also cut 6 little anchors as well, and I've cut the tiny little windows too, so you can put the windows and any of the embellishments wherever you want to on there to finish it off too. So, I really hope you enjoyed this construction video looking at Tonic Showcase number 38, which is the terrific triple towers that you can use to create a lighthouse, a windmill, a helter-skelter. Oh, I didn't actually show you the other two. They will be in the up-close video from yesterday, but that's the windmill, and this is the helter-skelter that I created as well, with the slide that goes down it. But if you want a more in-depth look at any of those and all of the dies in the set as well, you can check out my up-close video which went up yesterday too. So thank you so much for watching. If you want to get hold of Showcase number 38, there will be affiliate links in the description box below the video, and I really appreciate you taking the time to use them as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!